What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thanks for coming back for yet another Lawns Across America podcast. This is the first one post-Milton. So I'm going to go ahead and give you an update of how that was here to ride it out in Bradenton, Florida, just south of Tampa Bay. And I'm actually in Parrish, Florida. That's where I rode it out. So we're going to be talking about that. But before we do, I just want to let you all know, a lot of you listening are up north, and you guys have had an extremely warm fall. At least that's how it looks to me. Before we get into the hurricane update stuff, I'm basically going to just take you through the whole experience from the couple days before until the couple days after. That's kind of how I'm going to go through it. But before I do, I want to look at soil temperatures. And, of course, I'm first going to look for my friends in Crown Point, Indiana, over by their Chicagoland area. So this is up in the Midwest, just south of Lake Michigan, or really just on Lake Michigan. And this is an excellent, if you watch all my old content from back in the day when I started, that was all taking place right there. That was a turf-type tall fescue lawn. However, most of the lawns in that area at that time were Kentucky bluegrass and perennial rye mixes, just because it's on the lake there, so they do get a little bit colder than some parts of southern Indiana where there's more fescues. I grew fescue there to be a little bit different. Nowadays, the fescues have been bred. That was 20-something years ago. Nowadays, the fescues that's coming out, they can grow those really far north. They would never grow fescue as far north as they do now. It's just the breeders are just doing better. There's a bigger interest in grass seed in general, and so there's people putting time into breeding better grass seed that performs better. I don't know if they're breeding it for residential, if they're more breeding it for sports and golf, and then it falls over into residential. I don't think anybody breeds tall fescue for golf. Maybe they breed it. I don't know. Maybe I need to learn more about grass seed and why they choose the ones they do. But all I know is that the varieties are better prone to cold weather nowadays, just like the same they now have Kentucky bluegrasses that can grow further south into heat zones, whereas they couldn't before. And really, I always stress this, with cool season lawns and especially Kentucky bluegrass, heat is not the killer. It's humidity and heat. I always say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. My friends in Salt Lake, it gets well over 100 degrees there for many, many days on end in the summer, and they have the most beautiful Kentucky bluegrass lawns I've ever seen, and it's because it's also very dry there. Anyway, little ramble going on there, but what I'm trying to get at with you all now, cool season folks, and warm season, this is for you too, is that it's time to start playing defense, and you're not too late. If you just found my content in the last couple 2-3 weeks, then you probably haven't downloaded my pre-emergent guide. We talk about pre-emergents in the spring, pre-emergent herbicides. Those are ones that stop weeds from ever even getting into the lawn. You have two kind of herbicides that we use, and we're going to need to use some herbicides in any type of strategy that you're going to go after with the lawn. You can't go after, there's no way to get a perfect lawn without using herbicides at some point selectively. It's just not going to happen. So unless you resod, of course, but then eventually weeds are going to come in. So we have two types of herbicides we use. We use them selectively. We have a post-emergent herbicide, and then we have a pre-emergent herbicide. Post-emergents are ones that you spray post-emergent. After the weeds already come up, spray it to kill it. That's what you're going to go to Home Depot most of the time and buy. If you buy a pre-mixed gallon, we typically recommend the Roundup for Lawns brand. That's a brand, Roundup for Lawns. If you get the Roundup for Lawns, you can go to any Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, anywhere in the Midwest, anywhere in the Northeast, and you will find Roundup for Lawns in a pre-mixed gallon. You get that out, and it says for lawns. Kills the weeds, not the lawns. Spot spray. Boop, boop, boop. Spray and pray, and you can kill weeds. That's post-emergent herbicide. And you should be doing that right now. Spot spraying weeds. But then there's pre-emergent herbicides. This is a defensive strategy. And when we're talking about pre-emergents, we're really talking about targeting only certain weeds. They don't stop everything. Even the best pre-emergent on the market will not stop 100% of the weeds. In fact, most of them only stop 1 or 2. In the case of the pre-emergents that we have available to us, the ones we use and why, we use prodiamine, which is a pre-emergent. That's an active ingredient, prodiamine. And the main target in the fall here is Poa annua, or annual bluegrass. Every single year in Facebook, and I've been doing this now for decades, I can say that. Not on Facebook, but in general, I've been working with DIYers for decades now. And anyway, what happens in the spring is they will start to see these little light patches start to show up, or when we get to summer, spots will just die off because they had a lawn that was full of annual bluegrass. It lives only 1 year. It looks like the bluegrass around them, but it's not perennial. Perennial means it lives year after year after year, same plant. That's what all of our lawns are. They're perennial plants. The same lawn is there this year that's there next year, right? But if you have annual grasses that are invading, that means they come in and they surge, and you're like, oh, and in the case of annual bluegrass, you look at it and you go, ooh, everything looks good, and then it dies because it's an annual. It germinates in the spring, overwinters, germinates in the fall. Annual bluegrass germinates in the fall and matures, lives over the winter, and then in spring it rages and drops seed at the end of the spring, and then it dies. And so what happens is people have this full, beautiful lawn, and then they get the seed heads that everybody else gets, but theirs is annual bluegrass. It drops all the annual bluegrass seeds, and it dies, and now their lawn is thin. I've seen that case. We see a few cases like that every year where people's lawns will just die out in the summer, and that's what it is. They got a lot of annual bluegrass in there. The long and the short of it is, though, people don't want it anywhere in their grass. And some people that have thick, beautiful lawns will have patches of annual bluegrass that shows up, and it looks like acne on a perfect face. You know what I mean? It's like acne spots. It's just terrible. People panic about it in the spring. Everything they see, every little blemish in their lawn, they'll blame it on annual bluegrass. Anyway, all of that suffices to say you can stop it if you have it. If you've confirmed you have a problem with annual bluegrass, now is the time to stop it. You put pre-emergent down. Prodiamine is what we use. It does very well against Poa annua or annual bluegrass. You put it down now, and it'll stop that seed from even germinating. Lasts about 3 months. Now, here's the thing that I was talking about with that. And by the way, there's a couple others. There's bittercress, henbit. Henbit's a huge one. Henbit shows up in across the Midwest and the East, and people think it's creeping Charlie or ground ivy. It is the most what's the term? Misidentified. It's the most misidentified weed that I have ever seen in my decades of experience, my decades of practical experience working with thousands of homeowners, having eyes on thousands of lawns, literally across the United States. I have an app that gives me data. I can tell you the most misidentified weed in lawns, in cool season lawns, and it's in warm season lawns in the South too, is henbit. Henbit is growing right now. It looks like creeping Charlie. It's got the scalloped edge leaves, but the biggest difference is that it has an upright growth habit, and really creeping Charlie ground ivy rarely flowers. Those of you that sometimes you'll see even violets that you think are ground ivy, but ground ivy doesn't really flower that much, but henbit does. It's prolific at flowering. And so you'll see it growing right now, and the flowering is mostly in the spring. It might do some flowering in the fall too, but anyway, henbit. Prodiamine will stop henbit. Chickweed is another one. Hairy bittercress, another one. Hairy bittercress, my nickname in college. So there are some fall weeds that you can stop by putting down a pre-emergent now. Now, typically, I would be telling you that you're in the window, you're not too late, but I would tell you right now, that most of you are at the beginning of the window. As you guys recall, the strategy for pre-emergence is in the fall to stop the Poa annua, to stop the hairy bittercress, to stop the henbit. You get your pre-emergent down as soil temperatures are falling to 70 degrees coming out of summer. Because remember, we're coming out of summer, so soil temps are up in the high 70s and 80s all summer. And now we're coming into the fall, so the soil temperatures, I'm not talking about outdoor soil temps, even though outside soil temps are an indicator of what, outside air temperatures. I'm not talking about outside air temperatures. However, outside air temperatures are an indicator of what the soil temperatures are or will be doing. It's kind of all relative. But I'm talking about soil temperatures, and when soil temperatures fall below 70 coming out of summer, that is the time to put your pre-emergent down. These weeds, these annual weeds we're talking about, will be germinating in a window of time between 70 and right around 50. So as the soil temperatures are falling from 70 down to 65, down to 60, they're all germinating all throughout that window. Because remember, all these seeds are at different depths and this and this and that. So that's the window of germination. So you get your pre-emergent down prior. It stops those weeds from germinating. That's why it's called a pre-emergent. It stops the weeds from even getting into the lawn. And the way it does that is it creates a vapor barrier right in the soil, so that when the seed first germinates, it hits that vapor barrier, and that vapor interrupts cell division within the young plant, and it dies. Most of our herbicides, they interrupt some sort of system inside the living plant. They might that's what they do. They disrupt different processes inside the plant, because life is a very delicate string and balance, and if you interrupt just one piece on the string, it'll kill the rest. It'll kill the whole organism, and that's how herbicides work. Pre-emergent herbicides work by interrupting cell division in very young plants. That's why it's important to get them down pre-emergent or before they germinate, because once they get too big, cell division really isn't taking place in that same way, so the herbicide is not effective. I'm looking at Crown Point, Indiana right now, and typically because I lived there for so many years, I know that soil temperatures are going to fall below 70 somewhere in the beginning of September. I'm looking at the tool now, the Greencast tool. However, you can get the Yard Mastery app and you can get the soil temperatures for your house. And what you do is you just log in, and you can put in just a zip code. It'll give you the average soil temperature for your neighborhood. But if you put in your address, we have it for your actual plot on the map there, and you can get your soil temps in real time, 24-hour average soil temps in real time, as well as you can look in the calendar section, and it will tell you the historical time when your soil temperatures fall below 70. Now, if you're close to that time, it might be showing actual. Those two times may have intersected at this point. But all I'm trying to say is the Yard Mastery app, it's free, download it in the app stores, and it's got soil temperatures available for you, which is pretty cool, and it's free, and you can use that to target your timing. So typically I would tell you Crown Point, Indiana, again, south of Lake Michigan, they're going to fall in the early part of September, they're going to fall below 70. This year, they had a couple little cold spells at the beginning of September, but unseasonably warm, and their soil temperatures didn't actually fall below 70 until around the 22nd or 23rd of September, so about 3 weeks late in Northwest Indiana, and then they fell, but then they even went back up for a few days. So even as of right now, so as of today that I'm recording this, October 12th, in Crown Point, Indiana, their actual soil temperature right now, 24-hour average, is 62.7. 62.7 is their current 24-hour average soil temperature. Now, that is still within the window. Remember, these annual grasses and these annual weeds, they're germinating between 70 and like 50. Below 55, if you're already below 55, there's no need to really throw down there. You're kind of at the end of the window. But they're current right now at 62.7. So that means they're in the middle of the window. The window is 3 weeks late. It is not too late to get your prodiamine down. What I always say to that is, yeah, you might have missed the perfect time to throw down. You might have missed the perfect window. But if you're 2 weeks late, that's better than being 3 weeks too late. Being 3 weeks too late is better than being 4 weeks too late. Being 4 weeks too late is better than being 5 weeks. Does that make sense? When it comes to having a bad problem with these weeds, stopping 20% of them is better than stopping 90% of them. Nothing percent of them. You know what I'm saying? So Indiana, Northwest Indiana, Crown Point, 3 weeks running late. You could still throw down prodiamine and be good. Let's look at one more, and then we'll move on. But I just wanted to get into this. Let's look at something on the East Coast. Deerfield, New Jersey. So your 24-hour average, 56.8, current 64, 5-day average 60. So you're a little bit further ahead. Looks like you guys did also have a little bit of a warm spell. This is Deerfield, New Jersey. I'm going to take a screenshot real quick if you're watching on YouTube. That way you can see. But so you guys are kind of your 24-hour average. Yeah, you guys are kind of at the end of the window. So Deerfield, New Jersey, you're probably okay. Let's look at one more. In other words, too late. No need to throw down. Let's look at let's just go to Akron, Ohio. See, their 24-hour average is right at 60, 59.7. So yeah, you guys are kind of at the end of the window over there. Maybe it's just that part of the Midwest over by Crown Point, over by there. The big part, or the big key. So let's do that. Let's go out a little bit more west. Let's go look over at Cedar Rapids, Iowa. That's a little bit further west from Indiana, Crown Point. So let's look at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and just see what's there. Yes, you guys are really warm. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, your current 24-hour average is still 70 degrees. You guys are unseasonably warm. So right now, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Man, okay, so I guess the warming spell, I had thought it went all the way east, but it looks like it's mostly west. So it's the Midwest and west of the Midwest. So right now, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, your current average 24 hours, 70.7. Your 5-day average is 65. But right now, so typically, if I look at the 10-year average on October 12th, the typical soil temperature is around 60 degrees right now, and they're all the way up at 70. They are 10 degrees warm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So definitely still time to throw down that pre-emergent across there. Let's go one more across. We actually have quite a few lawn care nuts in Nebraska. Let's look at Kearney, Nebraska. Kearney, I want to pronounce it right. Kearney, Nebraska. All right, so you guys 24-hour average 65. You're high too, though. Nebraska is one of those states you think, is it a cold state? Is it cold or is it warm? It's kind of both. Nebraska, right there in the middle. But look at this. So typically this time of year, right now, on October 12th in Kearney, Nebraska, the 10-year average soil temp is 55 degrees. But they are currently sitting at 64.6, 65. So they are also unseasonably warm. So there's some sort of warm going across. I don't know, they call it Indian summer. Am I allowed to call it that anymore? Is that what they call it? But it seems really warm across that side of the Midwest. So plenty of time to still get your pre-emergence down and throw her down. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Hurricane Milton and my experience there. I see that another famous YouTuber here in Tampa, Moist Critical, he was actually kind of talking a little bit about what I'm going to talk about here first, and that is I actually sent an email out. Many of you got it. In fact, a few people responded on Twitter that they appreciated me sending it out. But I sent out an email actually on the day the hurricane hit. So it hit on the 9th. On Wednesday night, and I actually wrote this email and had it sent out because we still had power for quite a while. So I want to read you this email first, because what happens is y'all are watching this from many states away, and whatever news coverage you're getting, you have to understand that the news doesn't get views by showing, people sitting in their house singing Kumbaya, hanging out, playing board games, spending family time together, which is a lot of what happens during hurricanes, right? They're not going to show that stuff. What are they going to show? They're going to show all the terrible things. But you have to realize that in Florida is a big state, and we don't all evacuate. That's essentially what I'm saying. Even though the news up north is telling you things are bad and everybody's supposed to evacuate, and when you look at this storm on a newscast, it looks like the entire state is being swallowed by Satan's armpit. I totally get it. It looks bad. But those of us that live here, we know what our responsibilities are. So what I'm going to do is read this email to you first, because I want you to understand a Floridian's perspective before I tell you a little bit more about what I did. So I'm just going to read the email that I sent out. Florida and Hurricane Milton. I'm writing this email on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, and it's nearly 3 p.m. here in Manatee County. I live in Parish just north of the Manatee River near Bradenton. I always say Bradenton since it's the closest big city near me. Now, we're in the direct path of the storm, as it's forecasted to come in right over Bradenton Beach, where I often hang out at the Moose Lodge and film sunsets. There are always a lot of questions when storms come, whether you should evacuate or stay. Hundreds of you have reached out to me over the last few days concerned, and I want to thank you for that. Run from water, hide from wind. Now, I was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I've lived here in Bradenton since 2016. I've had quite a bit of experience with storms. Many of you are watching from several states away, and you're hearing terrible things on the news. This is also coming on the heels of all the destruction realized by Hurricane Helene just a few days ago, and things are pretty raw right now. I can understand that it looks bad, and it will be, but I'm staying here. Based on where I live and my preparedness level, it's best for me to stay put and not clog up the roads for those who do live in dangerous areas and need to get out, or for those who have already been displaced. They need to use the roads and available gasoline to evacuate, not me. Now, since I was a kid, my parents have always taught me to run from water and hide from wind. Run or hide, location matters. Most of Florida's population resides along the coasts, but we're not all in danger of flooding and surge from rain or storms or both. I live exactly 9.3 miles from the coastline, and I'm 27.8 feet above sea level. I'm not in a flood zone, no flood insurance required, and I do not have flood insurance on my home. No one in my subdivision does. This is one of the big selling points for realtors in my area. We're 9 miles from the water, but we're high and dry, and even hurricanes do not bring enough water to flood our subdivision that was engineered and built to code in 2005. Bottom line, we do not run from the water where I live. It's not a concern, even though we are still very close to the coastline in the Gulf of Mexico. Now back to you all watching the news up north. The biggest confusion comes in much of the terminology that you hear. Words like flood zone, surge zone, evacuation zone. They all sound like they mean the same thing, but they don't. Within a flood zone, you have several designations, mostly to inform you about insurance requirements. This is not life or death. But within a surge zone, you do have also several evacuation levels, and those are a matter of life and death. Now, I'm not going to be exhaustive here, so follow the links above if you want to learn more. But what I can tell you is that I am not in any of these zones. No floods, no surges, no danger from water. Therefore, I don't run, and instead focus on hiding from the wind. Now, the other danger with hurricanes is the wind. This is what most of you all up north you're scared of. The hurricane force winds, they're very scary. Milton is probably going to be a Category 3 when it hits, and that's serious. The good news for me is I live in a modern constructed home. It's made of concrete block and has a roof pitch that is able to withstand hurricane forces easily. Wind is scary, but the homes where I live are constructed for this, so we residents who don't live in those flood and surge areas were able to hide inside from the wind. Now, I did board up some of my windows, mostly around the bedrooms, and I did this because it makes it easier to sleep. Milton will come in around midnight. If it came in during the day, I would not have boarded up, but at night, if a window does break, it's a little bigger of a pain to shore it up in the middle of the night in the dark. Plus, it helps us sleep a little bit better knowing that the windows are boarded up. About 25% of the homes in my neighborhood are boarded up. Our windows in these homes are rated to withstand winds of this magnitude, but the flying debris is another story. Boarding up is smart, not required, and like I said, it helps us sleep. Note, there are several trailer parks and manufactured home communities that are not far from me. I would not be hiding from the wind if I lived in one of those. Preparedness. I am also prepared, not only for myself, but for my neighbors. I can 100% guarantee the power will go out and be out for 2 to 3 days, possibly longer. I have a propane-powered generator and enough fuel to keep multiple refrigerators cold for a week. I also have a bunch of Ego battery stuff to keep devices charged. And that's it during a power outage. You just don't want your food to spoil. If there is any damage to homes on our street, those of us who stayed will look out for our neighbors' properties until they return. We will all hang together while the power is out. I am fortunate and blessed to live in a well-populated area with great neighbors and a local city and state government that gets things back online fast. It's one of the reasons I moved to Manatee County in 2016. Now, there will be those who are not so blessed after this storm. As I mentioned in my podcast last week, the barrier islands were completely destroyed in Helene. Now, Milton is going to go through and make it worse. Milton will also knock down a lot of the big oak trees we have here. I'm already prepared with chainsaws to go out right after the storm and start clearing down trees in my neighborhood. From there, I will see what I can do to help further outward. This is another reason to stay, so I can help with cleanup as soon as the storm passes. Lastly, I want to point out some real heroes I saw just yesterday. They illustrate how Florida just gets things done. As I have already mentioned several times, Anna Maria Island was destroyed by Hurricane Helene. All the beaches along Manatee and Pinellas were destroyed. Every building flooded unless it was on stilts. Once all the sand was cleared, the debris was piled up on all the streets and being hauled away. That debris can become a bigger hazard with Milton now coming in tonight. There were crews out late last night, Tuesday night, until after sunset making runs of trash from Anna Maria to the landfills. While I was at home all day on Tuesday boarding up my windows and getting more beer and ice, these men and women were hauling wet, soggy hurricane damages off the island in an attempt to minimize further destruction. God bless them. As long as I have internet, I'll be posting on X and Instagram during the storm. I'll see you in the lawn next week when things dry out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about my experience going through Hurricane Milton. So, as you heard there in the story I told, Hurricane Helene came. That didn't really hit our area, but it did push a lot of storm surge up and cause a lot of damage on the beaches. And so those folks out there on the beaches, the barrier islands, they lost a lot. And then this one came through and whacked them. Where I'm at, I'm in Parrish, so I'm north of the Manatee River. I did not actually go through the eye. I thought it was going to go directly over our house, but it kind of switched at the end, which turned out to be good for the folks in Tampa and Tampa Bay. And I'm not going to explain it on this podcast, but you can do some research. Depending where the storm goes ashore and to what side of it you're on, it can either push a lot of storm surge or it can suck the water all away. And this one for Anna Maria and north didn't get as bad a storm surge. It was south where it came on shore, like Siesta Key and Sarasota. They got all the really bad, and south of there, they got all the really bad storm surge. This time, we were on the top side of it and didn't get it as bad. Doesn't matter. All of the beaches are still destroyed. They're still in bad shape from that. But further south of me is where the eye actually went through. If you watch Cletus McFarland's channel, he lives off of 64 where his racetrack is. The storm went directly over his head. Brett lives in that part of Bradenton too. The eye went directly over them. They had that. Now the eye came through around. It's hard for me to tell because there was a lot of. I'll tell you about the whole conflicting ideas of what I was seeing on the news versus what I was seeing outside. But I think the eye was supposed to have. The middle of the eye was on shore around 8:30, and so I only live 9 miles from the shore. So I should have been in the eye around 8:30 as well, or because it's at least that wide. All right, y'all, 9 o'clock update from Ellington Parish, north of the Manatee River. I don't think we're in the eye yet. Everybody, our power's still not out. You can see everybody on the news tells me that they've been through the eye. Like all the newscasters staying at their Airbnbs throughout the area have all been through the eye. I have not. I've heard people. I've never been through an eye before. I was born and raised in St. Pete. Been through a lot of hurricanes. Never been through an eye. People tell me like when it's in the daytime, it's like blue skies, birds chirping, like it's like a whole like tranquil oasis. We have definitely not had that yet, but we also have not had that bad of winds. Again, born and raised, this has not been that much yet. So I was watching Cletus. He thinks he's in the eye. Maybe he is. I don't know, but that's the update for 9 p.m. here in Parish, Ellington, a little bit north of 301 over by there. So, but I didn't go through the eye. It skirted just south of us. So let me tell you a little something about this storm, though it was. And I will just say, I want to just give this a little bit of credence, but not too much. If you are a native-born Floridian, you like storms. That doesn't say, I'm not going to say anything more too much about that. It doesn't take away from those who were harmed in the storm. We still care about them and help them. But people that grew up here, we like storms. It's just a thing. And so this was a pretty good one. This was one that will be remembered. I will say, though, that as it came in, again, we were supposed to be right in it. We're very close. Obviously, I'm close to the eye. This one's pretty close. The closest I've ever had the eye come to me, so pretty much the most direct hit I've ever, and I was born and raised in St. Pete. I'm 51 years old. I lived in the Midwest for about 18 years in between there, but I've been through a few hurricanes, and this one is the closest direct hit ever. I will tell you that the front side of it was almost nothing as it was coming in. So the power stayed on almost all the way through, so I'm watching the live news, and they're talking about wind gusts that they should be seeing in my area in Bradenton and around us and all of this damage. And they had, I'll talk about the newscasters that kind of made me funny, that I had some fun with. But either way, they're just talking about the storm and how close it is and how the eye is only a few miles offshore. They're saying like 4 or 5, 6 o'clock. And I'm looking outside and I'm not seeing hardly any wind. I'm seeing less wind than I see in our normal afternoon storms. I don't know. Something's off. Look, this is the eye. Hi, Dennis. This is the eye right here. Look at how close that is. They keep saying it's going to hit at 2 a.m. Dennis now just said it could be as 8 or 9. It's 3:53. Look, the eye is right there. And so look, but let's go out here. Look at the wind. Look. I mean, there's a little bit. This doesn't look like a hurricane. See what I'm saying? I don't understand it. Look at how close it is. I mean, we're like right there. I don't get it. Now he's trying to say that it's only going to be like 5 miles wide that gets really bad wind, and there's not much anywhere else. Something's weird with this one. Not a lot of thunder and lightning either. Rain, though, yes. Lots of rain. We had rain all the way for hours and hours beforehand. This one brought a lot of rain. But wind-wise, nothing. It was really weird. And I'm texting with friends that are in the area, and they're saying the same thing. It wasn't just me. Something's going on. So I'm looking at like the Windy app. I'm looking at live news, and I'm like, this thing, it's either further, because originally they said it was not going to come in until about 2 a.m. And then as we got into the day on Wednesday, as we got to about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday, because that's the day it came, Dennis Phillips starts going, oh, no, this is going to be earlier. And once we got to like 4 o'clock, he's like, oh, this is going to come in around 8. So they were off. The day before they were saying 2 a.m., and then 4 or 5 hours before, they're saying, no, it's 8. So there was something off with the speed and the movement of this thing that they were off on the prediction. Bad. Which was good. I wanted it to come in during the daytime. I want a storm to come in during the daytime for its worst parts because That way I can just see what's going on. Obviously, you're in it. You want to be able to look out your windows and see what's happening. I didn't board up all the windows, just the bedrooms, which I'm glad I did, because it did end up coming in at dark. It came in at 8-ish. All right, this is your 9 o'clock update from the Ellington parish border. We have not seen the eye yet. Everybody on the news has been through the eye. Cletus has been through the eye. Not us, but our power's not out either. I mean, the gusts have not been that bad. Again, I'm from here, so, but these do not seem too bad, so. But normally, when we have these storms that come close to us like this, you'll feel the hurricane force winds for 4 or 5 hours ahead of time. You'll start getting gusts, and then even 2 hours before it gets nearest to you, you're feeling heavy, heavy winds. Well, I can tell you the front of this storm coming up to where I was, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put the track on there and put a dot of where I was, because like I said, the north side of the eye just skirted me. But either way, there was almost no wind at all. I mean, nothing. Just nothing. I couldn't believe it. I said, I'm tweeting, something is wrong. I don't understand. Then we got to around 8:30 where the news was saying at 8:30, the middle of the eye should be coming on shore. The middle of the eye, which means the top whole half of the storm should already be passed, right? So I'm trying to decide if I'm in the eye or not. I'm going outside. I never experienced a time when it was completely clear. Like I watched Cletus's video. He goes out in the eye, and it's like a normal night. You can hear the frogs chirping and stuff, and then I'm watching newscasters, and they're going through the eye, right? And I know where they're at. They're all staying in Airbnbs, and they tell you where they are, and I can see where I am relative to them. So I know the eye missed me. We did have some calm spots, but either way, what I'm getting at is once that eye passed, and I confirmed that there was no way we were going to get it, the back half of the storm came through around 9:15, 9:30ish, and that's when the power went out. That's when it got gnarly. That some good winds too, and I go out in the storms. I like to feel them. I'm not playing around out there, but I go outside. All right, so the power is not out here, you can see. But now we're out of the eye, finally. Before the eye, there was almost nothing. And then the eye was whatever, I guess. But now we're out of the eye. Now it's pretty good. Look at my Eureka's. My Eureka's are getting beat up. Look at these guys. They're just not. By the way, this light. Look at that. Yeah, the Eureka's are definitely taking a shot. Yeah, they're getting hurt. Look at these guys. Yeah, they're getting beat up pretty bad. These on this side seem to be faring better. All the wind is coming from that direction. So I can't see the other side. I bet the other side they're pretty beat up though. But over here, yeah, these guys are getting, look at that. So yeah, that's the update here. We are now out of the eye and we're on the back side of it. So far, I mean, not too bad, honestly. Just the Eureka's have taken a lot of damage. They kind of deserve it. And walk around in a little bit. Again, it's just to feel God's power like that. That's just that's something, It's a once in a lifetime experience. So, but it was gnarly. I am glad I boarded the windows. I boarded the windows where the bedrooms were, and those were two ends of the house, and that's where most of the wind came, was from the east side, which is the windows I boarded. So I'm glad I did that. They got lucky there. As far as that goes, most of it came overnight. So, I actually open the windows and turn on the Ego fan, and just it's like going to sleep. If you ever go to on YouTube, they have a lot of y'all probably listen to like white noise when you go to sleep. There's one. It's a pirate ship in the wind. Is that what it is? No, creaky old pirate ship. Hold on. If you like ASMR to sleep to, creaky old pirate ship. Hold on. Is that what it's called? It's called 12 Hours Black Screen Creaky Wooden Pirate Ship Rain Sounds. Here, hold on. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it. right. Well, anyway, I'm playing it here. I don't know if you can hear it. It's that's what it feels like to sleep through a hurricane. So it actually put me right to sleep. And it might be the multiple libations that I had that also put me to sleep, and all the sugar because I overeat during hurricanes. So either way, woke up the next morning, and again, power was out. I have a generator. I have a propane generator. Let me just say a couple of things. I'll give you some preparedness tips for those of you that want to hear about it, because again, I have lived through this several times, so I'm pretty good at it. We typically realize that in my area, the power's going to be out for 3 days max. Now, this time it was only out for 16 hours. They did such a good job where I live to all the linemen and electricians and all the people that clear the roads. Because listen, there's this one knocked a lot of stuff down, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there's people that got to clear the roads. Wires are down. They got to get the wires out of the road so that the linemen can get through. And there's all of that infrastructure. You guys in Manatee County are awesome. You're incredible. They got us back in 16 hours. Now there's some parts of Bradenton that are still out today. This is October 12th. In the storm was October 9th. I prepare to be out for 5 days. It's never more than 3, but I always have enough for 5 days. And when I say that, I'm mainly talking about a generator. A generator is the main thing that you need. And the reason you need a generator is just to keep your refrigerator going. I have a big one, a 9500, whatever that is. I'm not into that stuff. Mine runs on propane, Bobby, but it's a 9500 gigawatts and gigawatts. And it's enough to power. I mean, I could power a good portion of my house with it. Probably not my 6-ton. I couldn't power my 6-ton AC unit with it, but anyway, I use it for the fridge to keep the food cold, because you pack your fridge full of ice and food, and now you have food and a cold fridge. And then if you need to heat things up, obviously I got a Traeger, and I have the Nexus power station from Ego that has a plug on it, a 400 watt, and it's the pure sine wave because you don't want to mess up your meat. So you plug the Traeger into that, so I can run a Traeger on my Ego stuff. And then I got the generator. Now, people will run their generator all day and all night, 24/7. Propane is not as efficient as gas, but the propane is cleaner and easier. I don't have to worry about gaskets and all that stuff drying out, because this is a generator that sits for most of the year, right? So so you pretty much have to change the gaskets in your carburetor if you're running gas every year. At least I did. So I start running on propane, and I don't have to worry about that. So less efficient. Plus, to me, propane bottles are easier to change in the storm. If there's inclement weather, it's easier to change a propane bottle than to try to handle gasoline and siphon gasoline out of big tanks and this and that. My choice. But again, I have a dual fuel, but I don't run my generator 24/7. I run it long enough to cool the fridge to its operating temp, and then I turn it off. So about 2 hours. And then the fridge can maintain temp for about 4 hours, and then it starts to lose. And so depending whenever I get to it, I time it out, but I'm basically running my generator every 4 hours for 2 hours. That's how you do it. And then if you have to charge other things, because again, I got a lot of Ego stuff. So here's the other thing. People will run their generator all night so they can run fans. To me, that's a huge waste of power. What you do instead is you get the Ego fan like I have. I have the misting fan. I'm not running the mist in my house, even though that might be kind of cool. But I'm running the fan on the Ego batteries at night. So now I have a fan to sleep with too, because it does get hot, right? Power's out. Don't have air conditioning. This is Florida, friends. Now we got lucky. The temps were good this time. That Ego fan came in super handy all night. Then I can run my generator every couple hours. And then another tip is because when the power's out, you're hanging out with your neighbors and stuff. So you want to keep your cold beverages in a cooler separate, and you get those out, and in the icy cooler, you get your beverages out prior to the power going out. Because the last thing you want to do when the power's out and you're using my generator strategy, which is to cool it down every couple hours, you don't want to be opening the doors, right? You only want to open the doors during the times when your generator's running if you can help it. So by having all your cold beers out in a cooler already, you don't have to keep going in all day over the next 3 days. You don't have to go in every 30 minutes to get another beer, because that's kind of what happens, right? So that's another tip. Another tip is to take your grill thermometer that you have. I have a grill thermometer that I use in the Traeger that's got these long thermometer sticker things. Anyway, that you can hang outside the grill. Well, you put one of those in your freezer and one of those in your fridge, and then you hang your thermometer on the outside. So now you can monitor where your fridge temp is on the inside. Because maybe 4 hours is maybe you got to run yours every 3 or every 2, or maybe you can get away with running yours every 6 or 7. But you take that same grill thermometer that you use with those long probes, and you stick one in the freezer and fridge, and that way you can monitor the inside. So those are inside of your inside temp of your fridge. So those are some kind of quick little tips, little ways to stay comfortable. The Ego also has lights that I used, a portable stand light, which was cool and helpful. It's just cool to have battery stuff. Like I said, I used the fan. I definitely used the Nexus Power Station because it's also got a USB-C on it, so you can charge phones on it and stuff, and you can charge 1,000 phones on one of those little batteries. You can also use, the reason I like it, it's portable, you can move it around. You could also use that to power your router, because a lot of times the power goes down, but the internet's still up, so you just have to power your router. Now, I didn't have to do that this time. I actually was able to, my phones, T-Mobile stayed up in our area the whole time, never went down, so I just tethered on my phone. So good job to T-Mobile. At least in my area, we never lost internet that way. Our home internet was down just because of the power, but I never had to even test any of that because I had T-Mobile. So, yeah, there's some little tips on that. Now, as far as the damage, so I got out, right away. I had a friend who has a property that had a lot of oaks that came down, and so I went over yesterday and helped clear all those oaks off the property because all the people that live there could get in and out easier. And over the next week, I'm going to start looking now for projects, because that's the big thing now, are down trees that are in people's lawns. They're going to need help, so start looking for that. That's a big thing I do. I got all these chainsaws and stuff, right? So I can just go and cut up stuff for people. You just find somebody with a tree down and you help them. But I will tell you that in my neighborhood, that was the biggest thing, was just trees down. I lost the screens to my my pool cage, which pretty much happens, so I got to get on the list to get the screens replaced in the pool cage, because I'm not DIYing that project. I will tell you that my Areca palms took a heavy beating, but they'll come back. The palms that took the worst, the native palms like the Queens and the Washingtonia, those are the native palms. They did well in the storm. It was the Royals. Man, the Royal palms got stripped in this one. They're like the big ones that everybody likes to have. Those Royal palms got stripped pretty big time in this one. Mine got hurt, but man, there's some people in the subdivision. It stripped them. What it does, it breaks all the fronds off, and then you have the spears that come up in the middle, which are the new fronds that are going to spread out over time. It opens those up prematurely, and they're like this bright yellow color. So not only does it rip all the current fronds off, it opens up the premature ones, and they're all yellow inside. It's wild. So I don't know, man. I don't know how long it's going to take these Royals to grow back, but they got hammered. Now, that was my subdivision, right? Big deal. Trees, no lives lost, nothing like that. Power out for 16 hours, big deal. But I did mention in my email some of the manufactured housing and stuff that's not far from me. Those places did take a beating. Most of it looks like their carports got ripped off, but there's actually a lot of damage to a lot of these manufactured homes. So those folks that live not far from me are going to be going through it for a while, and that's where I'm going to focus probably most of my attention, is going over there and helping anybody at this right there, because they're not far from me. We did have some pretty big trees go down in our area. One thing I told y'all, I was helping a friend of mine over there that had some trees go down. He has some old granddaddy oaks, and a big old limb fell off of one. One thing that's interesting when that happens is you can find some little treasures though. I was able to find some air plants that came down with it. One that I'm going to take and make a sculpture out of. You got to realize an air plant that's at the top of an old oak tree, that 100-year-old oak tree, you got to realize that air plant's been up there for how many years? Who knows? Never seen by human eyes. Never would have been seen by human eyes. The storm brings it down to ground level. Now I get to cut it off and take it and keep it as a souvenir. I mean, people buy air plants at the store. They pay money for them. I got a free one from an old oak out of this Hurricane Milton. So I'll do a little project out of that. I also found a hollowed out palm. I think it got some sort of bugs or something, and then woodpeckers or something hollowed it out, and a big old chunk of that came down. I'm going to turn that into a planting, some sort of pot or flower pot or something. So there is some ways to try to salvage something out of this that are, I don't know, just interesting if you're into botany or I like air plants, Tillandsia, so that's why it was super interesting to me. So every time I go over and help someone cut down one of their older oaks or cut it up, I always try to find a little souvenir or something out of it. I will tell you, the city of Bradenton is not messing around. They were already out with lines of dump trucks yesterday and heavy equipment, cleaning up the roads, cleaning up the thoroughfares. I mean, the one thing y'all have to realize is that, yeah, there's a lot of loss here, But the majority of people that live here, that's just what it is. It sucks. I'm blessed to live in a place where I don't get a lot of damage, but the people that do, they just come back from it. It's just what they do. They just go into this mode. Everyone works together. Everyone cleans up together. Even the beaches that really got destroyed, I can bet you that they will be open for the season coming up. I don't know. I don't live on the beach, but I can just bet, those business owners out there on the beach, they need the revenue from the tourists to be able to help rebuild. And so I bet as many of them and our season is coming in. When I say season, the tourist season here is the snowbird season is like right around Thanksgiving all the way through the end of February. And it kind of caps off at spring break being the big part of it. But there's a lot of revenue that comes into these areas during that time. And it's what feeds and boosts our economy. And so, that's one of the reasons why the municipalities get out and clean up so fast, because they need to be able to try to get back to that, because that's what helps our economy. So, I would say if you're planning to vacation here, I hope you do. I hope you still come here. I hope we're able to get some stuff open here, and I know they will. I know they're going to get enough open that some of you can come here and spend your money and have a great time and enjoy our beaches, because the beaches are still beautiful. The sunsets are just as beautiful right now after the hurricanes, even though things are destroyed. But like I said, I think the best thing I can wish for those business owners out there is that they are able to get that revenue moving again, and then all the locals out there are able to get things cleaned up. And as far as other stuff, what's interesting is I actually put down fertilizer on October 1st. You guys know we had our blackout all summer where we can't put down any nitrogen at all. And then as of October 1st, we can. Now, as of October 1st, I wasn't seeing Milton out there like that. Helene had already passed. And so that's why I was like, hey, I'm good. We just passed our hurricane here. I'm going to put this down. So as October 1st, I threw down. My lawn started turning green, looking good. And then obviously Milton came through. Now, as of right now, my lawn is green. It looks greener than everyone else's. It's growing healthy. They all lawns will stunt after a hurricane, because it's like overcast for several days and a lot of rain. It'll stunt the lawns. But mine's already starting to grow again now that we're getting a little bit of sunlight. That's what it is. They need sunlight to get going again. And yeah, it's greener. So I was ready to publish that video before Milton, the whole throwdown, but I didn't think that would be a good idea. So I'll put that footage up at some point. But yes, I did get fertilizer down before Milton. I did it exactly on October 1st, before I knew Milton was going to be what it was. I guess I'm just trying to say I wasn't trying to be irresponsible with that, but it is a reality. It is what it is. I'm going to share it with you. I also sprayed some weeds prior and got some really good results. I used some Celsius. And again, this was several days before Milton was coming in. On a sunny day, I sprayed. And, again, I'm within the label. It's rain within 48 hours. All that. I was all in the label. I got to stop being so careful and just tell you all what is, right? So yeah, sprayed weeds, got some really good results. Here's alligator weed the day after the hurricane, dying. So it was sprayed several days before and then after. As far as prep for the hurricane, I did do some pruning. Afterwards, I did have some cleanup to do. So I did all that. That's what's been going on. I'm just kind of updating y'all on what's been going on around here. So hopefully we'll be able to get back into our regular pattern here soon. Next week I have the GIE Expo. Is that what it's called now? GIE Expo? The Equip Expo. Yeah, I'll be at the Equip Expo next week. On the Wednesday, I'll be at the Earthway booth at 2 o'clock. We'll be doing a giveaway, so don't forget to come by there. And then hopefully we'll be able to get back into our regular session, our regular filming after that. Looking forward to seeing some new stuff coming out from Ego. I can't tell you what it is, but I do know that they've got something coming out that's been highly requested. And as of the day of the Equip, we will be able to reveal that to you. So that's going to be fun. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know what else to say to y'all. I appreciate all of you that did reach out during the hurricane or before and after and checking on me. But yeah, it meant a lot. But everything's good my way. And like I said, we're just going to work on helping our neighbors clean up from here on out. So I guess I'll go ahead and end the podcast here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And again, if you're going to be at the Equip, I'll see you next week. Other than that, hopefully get back to regular lawn care nut videos here in the next couple 2-3 weeks. I'll see you in the lawn.